All right, get this. We're diving into a story that's like something straight out of a genealogy show, but with a twist. Decades of mystery, a family clinging to hope, and DNA rewriting history. The best part is this one's right up your alley, what with you being so into DNA testing and family history.
What really gets me about this case is how it shows how important DNA testing is becoming for putting families back together, even after they've been apart for generations. It's amazing, really, to see how much progress they're making in that field.
So picture this, 1951, Oakland, California. 6-year-old Luis Armando Albino is hanging out in the park with his brother, Roger. Just a normal day, or so they thought, right?
Back then, kidnappings, especially by strangers, those were, sadly, a fact of life. The police didn't have the fancy tools they have now, like DNA analysis that everyone uses. Fingerprinting, that was about it. Can you imagine trying to find someone across state lines with just fingerprints? Like finding a needle in a haystack, it was.
And that's exactly what happened to Luis. A woman comes up to him and his brother, starts speaking Spanish to Luis, lures him away with candy. Just like that, he's gone. The articles we've got really give you a feel for the panic that followed. The whole city was in chaos. Coast Guard, soldiers from the nearby base, everyone was out looking for Luis.
It's just tragic, but there's Roger, Luis's brother, right in the middle of it all, and he saw everything. He never changed his story, not about the woman, not about the bandana, nothing. And this wasn't just some hazy memory either. This was trauma seared into his brain.
Makes you think about how heavy that memory must have been for him, carrying it all those years. And the family, holding on to that hope that Luis was out there somewhere. The articles mentioned photos of Luis up in his relatives' homes, a constant reminder of the little boy who was taken.
Those photos, they become more than just pictures. They represent hope, a family's refusal to give up. And it really shows you how strong those family ties were. They never stopped believing, especially Luis's mother. She went into her grave believing he was alive.
Some serious faith right there. But as the years go by, no sign of him. I've got to wonder how that hope competed with the weight of all that lost time. And then, decades later, things take a turn. A good turn. It's 2020, and Luis's story collides with the world of DNA testing. This is where his niece, Alida Alekin, comes in.
It's kind of wild when you think about it. DNA testing back in the 50s, it was like something out of Star Trek, right? Now it's everywhere. Opened up a whole new way to solve these kinds of mysteries.
Totally. So Alida, she spits in a tube, sends it off, and boom, stumbles onto a family secret that had been buried for, what, like 70 years? But it's not so simple, is it? She gets this 22% match with someone she's never even heard of. Now, I know you're the genealogy whiz here. What does that percentage actually tell us? Like, is that a close match?
Well, 22%, that points to a pretty distant relative. Think of it this way. You share about 50% of your DNA with your parents, your siblings, right? 22%, that could be a second cousin, maybe even a third, someone way out on that family tree limb.
Okay, so not exactly a smoking gun in the case of Lou's disappearance, but still, you've got to admit, it's pretty intriguing.
Oh, absolutely. It's a clue, a breadcrumb trail. And in cases like this, sometimes that's all it takes to get things moving. Even a distant match can be that crucial first step.
Here's the catch, though. The articles say Alida, she hits a dead end. Did she ever mention what kind of roadblocks she ran into?
They're kind of vague on that, to be honest. But it happens a lot in these situations. Could be privacy settings on one of those genealogy websites, or maybe people just not being ready to connect. And hey, that's their right. Genealogy research, it's not always a straight line. You got to be persistent.
And Alida, she's nothing if not persistent. Imagine being that close, like almost tasting it, and then bam, dead end. Would have been easy to just walk away, but she didn't.
Shows you how much it meant to her. It's not just some intellectual puzzle. It's about family, about healing a wound that's been open for decades.
Absolutely. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Jump ahead to early 2024. Alida's at the Oakland Public Library, and I can just picture her hunched over those old microfilm machines, like something out of a detective movie.
Those library trips, those can be gold mines for anyone tracing their family history.
And for Alida, it's like hitting the jackpot. She finds a photo. Luis and Roger, that day in the park, right before Luis vanished.
That photo, it changes everything. Sometimes you just need that one tangible reminder, something to reignite that fire, that need to find answers.
So there she is, Alida, armed with this picture, more determined than ever. She heads back to the Oakland Police Department, and this time, things start happening. I'm talking a cold case, ice cold for, over 70 years? Suddenly it's red hot.
This is where all that fancy technology, the DNA advancements, they come into play. Back in '51, the police, their hands were tied. But now, They've got databases, software that can analyze DNA like you wouldn't believe. It's a whole new ballgame.
So we've got Alida, she's not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the Oakland police, they're taking another look. And then the FBI gets involved. It's like the A-team of family reunions. And
Yeah.
guess what? They find him.
No way.
Yeah, after 73 years, Lewis is alive and well, living over on the East Coast. Though the articles kind of gloss over how they finally tracked him down, like which databases did they use? What did that DNA trail actually look like? You know, all the good detective work.
It's like they say, truth is stranger than fiction. I mean, imagine piecing together this puzzle where the pieces are scattered across, like, a lifetime.
I know, right?
It's wild. And the articles we've got, they're pretty hush-hush on the details. But if I had to guess, I'd say those DNA advances we were talking about, those were key.
Makes sense.
The police have access to these massive databases now and the software. It can analyze DNA samples in ways you wouldn't believe. That must help them narrow down the search for Luis.
73 years. It's almost an entire lifetime. The article says that when they found Luis, his first words were, "Thank you for finding me."
Wow. You know, it's a simple thing to say,
It is.
but it really makes you think. Even after everything, he still wanted that connection to find his family, to belong, to carry that with him for all those years. That's just, wow.
Talk about holding on to hope. The articles mention he was in the Marines, a firefighter even, has his own family now. Makes you wonder about the life he built, the experiences he had, all while his family was out there hoping for this very moment.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that Luis deserves his privacy, especially now as he's getting to know his family again. It's natural to be curious about these stories, these reunions that seem impossible, but we've got to remember that everyone involved has their own story, their own way of dealing with something this huge.
So true. There's a whole other side to this that we can only imagine. And sadly, these reunions, they often have a bittersweet side, and this one's no exception. Luis's brother, Roger, he passed away just a few weeks after they found Luis.
It's a reminder that even though DNA can rewrite history and bring families back together, it can't, turn back time. It's this mix of joy and grief, relief, maybe even some wondering about what could have been. These are tough emotions, and it's a lot to handle. It makes you realize how important it is to have support, maybe even counseling for families who have been through something like this.
For sure. But there's a little bit of light in all that sadness. Luis's niece, Alida, she said she believes Roger died happily and at peace, knowing his little brother was finally home.
That feeling of closure, it's powerful, even when it comes after decades of not knowing. Shows you just how strong family bonds can be. Even when faced with unimaginable loss, there's still love and forgiveness. It's pretty incredible.
This whole thing is just, I don't know, it's mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you think about family, identity, all the crazy turns life can take. Who would have thought a simple DNA test could unravel a mystery that's older than most people alive today? But here's the thing. Luis's story, as unbelievable as it is, it's not one of a kind, right? What are your thoughts on that?
You hit the nail on the head. With all these genealogy websites popping up, online communities dedicated to DNA research, not to mention the technology itself just getting better and better, these reunions, they're still amazing, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely becoming more common. It's like we're opening up this window into this massive and sometimes messy family tree of humanity.
So well said.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you listening, we hope you found this deep dive as thought-provoking as we have. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and who knows what mysteries you might uncover.